What is up, Shlomo? Let's light this menorah. Shalom and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Ani Judaism radio broadcast. My name is Christopher Fredrickson, the rock and roll rabbi. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with all of you here today and to commemorate this meeting. Cue it!
Going.
Shalom!
Shalom! Moshe, hang on. Let me?
Who's that?
Moshe.
Marsha? Shalom! Shalom!
Shalom!
Shalom!
Moshe, did you send the fish?
I said Mordecai.
Mordecai.
Get off, you the hellish to come and carry this yourself.
Hi, Carlo.
Hold on 1 second. Right, fish.
I brought fish.
No, I
Hey.
did not bring fish. I didn't do it. All right. Shalom and welcome. Joe plays that all the time. Oh, well, then that means I'll have to play it more then. All right, guys, it is great to be with all of you here today. Just so you guys know, this episode's a little bit late. Why is this episode a little bit late? It's a little bit late because of the fact that YouTube has decided to restrict streaming for me for 3 days. And so we had to do this episode later on. It plays right into what we're talking about here today on the program. Plays right into it. And you see the thing behind me here, good versus evil. You see that right there behind me, and that's going to be the topic of discussion here today, and especially in the modern world. In today's time, what it is that we are seeing now. I was blown away by this, okay? For some reason, the article headlines were shocking new claims that this guy right here, for those listening on the radio, we have Marilyn Manson right over here on the screen. The guy who calls himself the Antichrist superstar. They are shocked and in all kinds of awe that he sexually assaulted his ex-girlfriends. I'm sitting over there saying to myself, why in the world would that be shocking? I mean, the guy goes and calls himself the Antichrist superstar, for goodness sake. And you're shocked that the guy's evil? You are shocked by this. And then you hear all of these individuals come and say, well, he's such a nice guy. Very, very smart. Bordering on brilliant in many areas is what you hear his buddies going and saying and all this stuff. And it reminds me of the scripture where it talks about the days where good is seen as evil and evil is seen as good. Within our community as well, we had a similar thing go on for the duration of about 3 years. The guy that went and stole the name of this sect of Judaism. Ani Judaism used to be known as Lapid Judaism, a phrase coined by that of Rabbi Yitzhak Yossi, who was the Rebbe of which was now Ani Judaism. And back in October, the guy that tried to steal our name and all those things was arrested. And what was he arrested for? Well, as you can see, for those who are looking at the screen, Mordecai Griffin, whose real name is Mark Aaron Griffin, as you can see on the screen, he was arrested for sexual assault. Now, the thing with this is that it's so interesting because after all of this had come to light, so many had still seen me and Rabbi Yossi and other people as being the bad guy. But this guy is the most righteous individual on the face of the planet, but yet he was just like this guy and this guy, Marilyn Manson and Mordecai or Mark Aaron Griffin have something in common. Apparently, both of them are righteous dudes in the eyes of many individuals. Crazy. And then we look at what is happening in the world around us. It is so crazy to me that because of the color of my skin, I am told that I am inherently evil. Because of the fact that I'm Jewish, we have things that are happening on the government side of things, lockdowns and arrests happening in New York, in the Jewish communities for going to shul. These Jews that are going to shul are being arrested for going to shul. Christian churches as well are having to meet in secret. There's another place in the world where Christian congregations have to meet in secret as well. It's communist China. And it's interesting because when you go and you look at the talking heads, the news personalities, they make out the people of faith as though we are the problem. We are told that we are the problem. That we are the evil ones. But the ones who are trying to push abortion, who are wanting to give Iran money to build a bomb to go and wipe Israel off the face of the map, and to join this Free Palestine movement. Joe Biden just signed on to his support to this Free Palestine group. And we, the people of faith, are the enemy for saying we stand against abortion, for saying that we stand for the nation of Israel. Because of the fact that we don't want people going and committing suicide because the LGBTQ, LMNOPQ movement and all that stuff, a lot of those people that go through the transition, a vast majority of them end up going and committing suicide because of messing with their body makeup and all of these things that cause some really goofy stuff to go on. We're not allowed to say that these feelings that people have towards, their sexuality in these ways, shapes, or forms is actually a mental issue. It's a mental issue. Here's some history that a lot of people even don't know about in terms of that. Did you know that psychiatrists actually had homosexuality in the bracket of mental illness up until the 1970s? Now, it wasn't because of new research or the scientists saying, and the psychologists and all these other things saying that something was, that their previous research was incorrect or anything of the sort. It wasn't anything of the sort. This is a story that many people don't know about. Many people don't know about this story, but what ended up happening is you always have these psychiatric conventions that happen every year. And in one psychiatric convention that was up in Philadelphia, what happened was there were these this homosexual group that was going and decided that they were going to go in there and cause problems. They ended up going and holding people at gunpoint. The psychiatrists in this conference holding them at gunpoint. It was basically a hostage situation that was going on over there. And what they wanted was for the psychiatrists to take homosexuality off of the list of mental illness. And ultimately, out of the fear of violence, it was done. And so that's history that doesn't get talked about. That history is never discussed. It's pretended like it never happened. But considering that us of faith, we stand for the family unit. We stand for the traditional family. We believe in, first of all, that God has individual roles for the man and for his wife. And because of the fact that we think parents need to grow up in a two-parent household, we are told that our view is evil. And that the view of rewarding people for things that it is they shouldn't be doing is a righteous thing. It is so crazy. It is almost like we are living in permanent opposite day. Everything is flipped on its head. Everything. When you look at one side of the political aisle, you go and you look at that and see what the things that it is that they try and push, the things that they advocate for, the death of children, the death of old people through their healthcare things they put into place back in 2010. And now you look at what's going on right now with this pandemic that is happening all throughout the world. You look at this and people are being shamed for not wearing a mask somewhere, being touted as criminals for not doing it. Back in the 1930s and 40s, us Jews had to wear a star in order to go to the grocery store, to be able to go to the doctor, to be able to go anywhere, to receive any sort of service. And these are the flashbacks that I get when I see these mandates, and then they try and see how far they can push. Oh, you got Tony Fauci. It says that, maybe you should, go and wear 2 masks. Yeah, you're going to wear 2 masks. Or go and wear 3 masks. 3 masks is better than 2. Just craziness. Just craziness. But yet, anti-Semitism is okay in today's world. You have the guy from Pink Floyd, Roger Waters, him going out there, spewing all of this anti-Semitic stuff. And then throwing a big fit that Israel won't let him do a concert over there. Roger Waters has not lost a fan base. Why? Because of the fact that anti-Semitism is okay in this society. Anti-Semitism is perfectly fine. We have United States senators like Ilhan Omar who say that Israel needs to be wiped off the face of the map. You also have former senators on the other side of the aisle as well. Ron RuPaul is what I call him. You guys know what I'm talking about. Who said basically the exact same thing, said that 9/11 was done because of Israel. But yet, he was never called out. He was never called out by either side of the aisle. We have Nick Cannon, who ended up making a ton of anti-Semitic statements. One place dropped him, but yet that Masked Singer, he's still on there, isn't he? He's got all of his other gigs. Only one of those places have dropped him. CNN was cited 250 times by the ADL. NBC was cited 230 times by the ADL. ABC and Disney, over 300 times by the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. What is it that they sent papers to all of these places for? Anti-Semitism. But that's not a conversation that people want to have. That's not a conversation that anybody worries about. Why? Because anti-Semitism, in the eyes of this society here today, is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. If a Jew goes and, gets called anti-Semitic things and is pulled over by a police officer and then killed for it, hey, no big deal there. But yet, you get a guy who is of a darker skin color, and he goes and gets hopped up on amphetamines and steals from a store. We need to riot about that. A guy that was running in to go and rape his ex-girlfriend, he gets shot. Oh my gosh, that was an injustice, especially considering that he had a knife on himself. That's a huge injustice. But yet notice all the, you can go and find all these videos of all the things that are happening to Jews just walking down the street wearing a kippah, getting beat up, almost to the point of death. And the media is totally silent. Where's the Jewish Lives Matter group? Where's that out there? The fact is that we allow evil to slip in through the back door. We allow evil to slip in through the cultural norms. You have congregations today. I'm not just going to pick on my Christian brethren. Like I said, I find them to be Gerim. We have the Methodist Church going and saying that, transsexuals, women, lesbians can go and become bishops in the Methodist Church. They can, be pastors of the church and all that stuff. You also have conservative Judaism as well as Reform Judaism that says, hey, we love our lesbian rabbis. And to speak out against this is something that is going to get me another strike on YouTube. Which really shows how it is that these things have really been flipped around. In our faith, we have a guidebook. In the Jewish and the Christian faith, it's the Bible. The Bible is our guidebook. That tells us what God expects of us, what God doesn't want us to do. That is our guidebook. Because of my personal convictions, there are activities that I will not engage in. But if you choose not to engage in those things, society says that you need to at least accept it. They call it tolerance. And it's always interesting because those who always talk about tolerance choose not to tolerate the Christian or the Jewish view. They choose not to tolerate that view. What they're saying is, I want to be tolerated. Whatever kind of filthy thing that it is that I do, you need to tolerate it. That's, somebody goes and, years ago there was a crucifix where some artist, quotation marks for those listening on the radio, artist in quotation marks, decided to take feces and throw it onto a cross and call it art. That right there is what the world says needs to be tolerated. And we look at our congregations. We are seen as weirdos if we choose to take the Bible as our guidebook. However, if you are a Muslim and you wish to practice your Muslim faith, you are obligated at the same time to say, oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That is so wonderful. That is so great. But us Jews and Christians, however, fundamentalists, crackpots, these people are terrorists. When was the last time that you had a... Oh, that's right. The BBC goes and calls us terrorists rather often. So is NBC and ABC. I totally forget about that. Yes. Yeah. They always like to say that Israel is the world's leading place of terrorism. That terrorists come out of Israel, not from Saudi Arabia, not from Iran, not from Iraq. Hamas, Hezbollah, what was it? Al-Qaeda, ISIS. In their eyes, those are righteous dudes. But the IDF, oh my gosh, the world is flipped on its head. As the scripture says, and I'll recite it again, in those days, they will see evil as good and good as evil. There's people that are close to me, people in my own family, for instance, who see what it is that I do with my faith as being something goofy. From the outside looking in, I can understand that, especially if you're coming from a secular worldview. They don't understand it. They think that because of the fact that I live the life I do, that there's something wrong with me. That's what prompted me to be tested for autism, which, come to find out I do have Asperger's syndrome, but it also means I'm really smart as well. But at the same time, the thing that prompted it is because of the fact that Christopher, goes and has this certain diet that he does. On Shabbos, he refuses to work, and he goes and wears, these things and all that stuff, wears that thing on his head, But I go and I think about that now, and I say to myself, that's the product of somebody who is living a life in secularism, that sees those things as goofy and has adopted the societal norms. To them, because of the way that Judaism and Christianity have been seen in the view of secularism, that's the reason why it is that I'm seen as weird. And people would think that there is something wrong with me. That obviously an individual who is doing the things that it is that I do in my life, there has to be something wrong with him. And nobody else talks about this. None of my colleagues on the radio, I don't think, that I've heard. Maybe they have, but I haven't heard anybody talk about these particular things, about how the societal norms have even caused people of faith to very much create a faith that is much different than the faith that Yeshua HaNotzri, or Jesus Christ himself, ended up producing through that Judaism. I mean, first of all, I'm not trying to ram the Torah down anybody's throat here, okay? That's not my job. But you look at how much the faith has changed For instance, the Notzrim in Hebrew means Christians. The word Christians is indeed in the New Testament. Some people try and define it as something else, but the word does technically translate to Christians. It does. But the Christians were a part of Judaism. You know, you had, you know, the Shelachim of Yeshua going and meeting with Gamliel and all these other Jewish bigwigs, you know, and all that stuff. Nicodemus is talked about many times in the Talmud. They were a part of Judaism. But now it's so crazy because Dr. Michael Brown, for instance, had to put out a book this year called Christian Anti-Semitism. And you look at how it is that Christianity has changed from the time of the Shelachim, of the apostles, and see where it is now. It's totally different. It's a totally different faith. It doesn't look anywhere near the same. And you incorporate in the secular production, you know, the production of the light shows, the loud music, the PowerPoint, you know, the special effects, the smoke, and all that stuff. You incorporate all those things, you know, it's like a circus. But yet, if you go and you look at how it is that people like Shimon Kefa and Yochov and, you know, all the Taladim of Yeshua, how it is that they would go and worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, it would be, you know, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu las. You know, that was the faith of them, you know. And the reason why I bring that up is because now you can drive through any town and you'll see signs that say this church is LGBTQ friendly. You'll have churches that define themselves by what color their skin is. You will find, you know, just so many things from the modern day of the PC culture. It's like, yes, even though the Bible speaks against that, we are going to accept it. And we're going to twist the scripture in any way, shape, or form. Like, for instance, the passages about homosexuality, for instance, being an abomination. When Hashem says something's about an abomination, he really means business about it. But now people are taking those passages and saying, it's not really talking about homosexuality. It's actually talking about worshiping other gods is what it's talking about. And I'm telling you, you really have to do some major gymnastics to try and make that case. Reform Judaism makes it easy, and so do these avenues of Christianity, because why? Well, they reject Torah Shebe'al Peh. They reject the Oral Torah. The Oral Torah tells us during the times of Moshe Rabbeinu and the Sanhedrin, all the way up until the times of Ezra, and even after the times of Ezra, the way it is that was interpreted by the people who even read it, who had wrote it, you know, who had written the Torah, people who were in the midst of Moshe Rabbeinu, and people like Ezra, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, you know, people who were in these dudes' midst. And it's interesting, in the 21st century, we can just say, we can take that passage, make it mean whatever we want it to mean. So let me get this straight. The same people that are saying that this is talking about these passages, it's an abomination to worship another god, which also we have another commandment for that. So I'm not saying that it's okay to worship other gods, but these very same people are the ones that sit there and say, We need to see Islam as as our brethren and a very beautiful religion. And I'm just blown away by the hypocrisy of all this. And again, it comes down to the idea of evil being seen as good and good being seen as evil. Take, for instance, I opened up the show and I said, you know what? YouTube has already handed me 2 strikes. 2 strikes. You guys see that I'm for those who are tuning in for the first time, you guys, and those who have been watching me for a while, I'm the most level-headed individual that you'll find given these teachings. I'm not a conspiracy wacko. I'm not, just crazy or anything like, some of these others that are out there. I don't have a shtick like that, But somehow I'm told that I myself incite hate speech and that I purport hate speech. I mean, has anything I said on this broadcast today been hate speech in any way, shape, or form? But then you go and you look into it in today's time again. They're trying to say that the President Trump incited a riot. I remember watching his speech. There's nothing in there that would say that he incited a riot. He didn't say to commit any sort of violence whatsoever. But it's interesting because it's like, in the eyes of today's world, the truth is a lie, and a lie is the truth. It's so crazy, and it seems like the entire world has been flipped on its head because of this. All right. Well, guys, that's all that we have for here today. And I want to thank all of you for joining me here. And I want to wish all of you shalom bracha, peace and a blessing. Make sure to check out all of our websites that are streaming down there below. Make sure to check out anijudaism.com. And right over there, you can get the audio versions of this. Make sure to subscribe to us on Vimeo, which is where we have most of our teachings, over 1,000 of them right over there. And then YouTube, if we're still there on YouTube. And also, if you want to learn Hebrew or Aramaic for $10 a month and learn it on your own time, you can pay $10 a month, $30 every 3 months, or get a lifetime pass for only $130. You can go to anijudaism.com and click on the tab that says Learn Hebrew and Aramaic. And we got over 150 videos there and over 200 PDFs full of exercises and other things just right there. So make sure to go and check that out as well. All right. I want to wish all of you shalom bracha, peace and a blessing, shavua tov. Hope all of you have a wonderful week. And I'll be seeing you guys again very soon. All right. Shalom, shalom.